Tonight, intensifying civil society pressure on President Akufo-Addo to revoke appointment of former Maritime Authority boss as new chairman of the GRA board.
The government must revoke the appointment.
We should step back, draw the clear lines that public service is about a certain conduct. So I really think that this is a decision that should be rescinded.
The Ghana Integrity Initiative is raising questions about the integrity of the new GRA board chairman, accused of abuse of office and conflict of interest, including allegedly spending 1 million cedis on a residence and buying 13 ACs for that particular residence while he was the boss of the Ghana Maritime Authority.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, also brought to you by Gassim Cement, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready, and nationwide health insurance, your healthcare family. There is immense pressure, there's immense civil society pressure tonight on the president to remove the new board chairman of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Mr. Kwame Owusu, who was recently appointed the board chairman of the GRA after he left his post at the Ghana Maritime Authority under a cloud of controversy. He had been investigated while he headed the Maritime Authority for allegedly abusing his office and also being in the conflict of interest situation. Now, there is still no indication if that investigation was ever completed nor published. Tonight, we are hearing from anti-graft body, the Ghana Integrity Initiative, and the Center for Democratic Development, CDD. Now, the GII has, in the last couple of hours, issued a statement calling for the removal of Mr. Owusu. We are also hearing from the Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement at the CDD, Dr. Kojo Asante, who is also asking the President to rescind his decision to appoint Mr. Owusu. Now, remember that last year, he was accused, Mr. Owusu was accused, while he was the Maritime Authority boss, he was accused of conflict of interest in supervising the spending of 135,000 cedis on a hotel he owns. He was also accused, and by the way, on that particular accusation, he held a press conference and admitted to owning the hotel where the sum was spent, but says that he, in effect, recused himself from the process to spend that money. He was also accused of spending 1 million cedis on renovating a two-bedroom house for himself. On that same house, he's reported to have purchased 13 air conditioners for his comfort. He held a press conference, and this was his reaction to all the accusations against him last year.
1 million Ghana cedis that has been used to renovate a two-bedroom house for the Director General.
Construction period pictures, show them.
Construction period pictures, the auditors were there day and night taking pictures of construction and then came out the building. And let me tell you, that building is now made out of 4 bedrooms of the main structure, the main house. A living room, a dining room, kitchen, a family room, a library, and a basement. An issue has been raised with regard to Director General having 11 air conditions. That I consider mediocrity. In a two-bedroom house. Where will I put them? The places that I listed to you, each one of them to have an air condition will be 13. So the 11 is really not enough. Some Director Generals have a house allocated to them and have even a separate guest house for entertainment. And if this Director General or any other Director General of Ghana Maritime Authority who should pretend.
So that is Mr. Owusu there. Then he was speaking as the Managing Director of the Ghana Maritime Authority, with all the accusations hanging on his head, and he explained that away, as you just had there. Subsequent to this controversy, the Transport Ministry then commissioned an investigation into his conduct, and a report was due to be published on it. Since then, no one knows first if the investigation itself was completed, and whether that report, publicly hasn't been published yet. The reason why both the CDD and the GRI tonight are demanding that the president rescind their decision until that clarity is brought to what the investigative committee found. And the latest controversy has erupted following his appointment in June as the board chairman of the Ghana Revenue Authority, when the issues that a GRI is raising is still to be resolved. I want to bring in my colleague Elton Broby. We're speaking shortly with the GRI's Michael Boydu, who's on the line with us. Mr. Boydu, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Right, thank you very much, and good evening to your listeners.
A few of the things you said in your report, I want to quickly bring to the attention of my listeners, and my colleague Elton has details of this. GRI narrows this down to the president himself and raises questions about that this conduct goes to his very oath of office.
Yes, and for them it is important to remind the president of this section of his oath of office, and that is, I dedicate myself to the service and well-being of the people of the Republic of Ghana, and to do right to all manner of persons. That's the quotes in the presidential oath. Now, according to the said service which the president swore to all Ghanaians, include holding himself and appointees accountable to the people of Ghana and making information on his accountability available to the people whose mandate he holds to govern. Also, according to them, the president should be guided by Ghana's commitment to the Open Governance Partnership, as OGP, which the government of Ghana signed onto in 2011. The OGP commitment revolves around the pillars of transparency, empowering citizens to participate and harness new technologies to promote good governance. Therefore, publishing reports of investigation into the conduct of public offices is an evidence of good and open governance practice, which would be consistent with their oath of office. That's according to the GI.
Let me bring in Mr. Boydu. Mr. Boydu, you also link your reservations about him as a board chair to government tax efforts. You seem to believe that his appointment can undermine government's efforts to raise taxes. Explain.
Well, absolutely. In 2017, if we all remember that GRA gave tax amnesty. That tax amnesty was based on law, the Tax Amnesty Act 2017. One of the objects of the tax amnesty was to promote voluntary compliance, that people will voluntarily go and pay taxes. Now, for people to voluntarily go and pay their taxes, it means that confidence in the tax administration must be inspired. Now, having done all that, if it turns out that we begin to appoint people who have questionable integrity until proven otherwise, people who have questionable integrity into the helm of affairs, aren't you stabbing the very initiative that you have spent so much resources initiating? So that is as simple as that. That if government is serious about its own initiative, the tax amnesty and voluntary tax compliance, then the decision to appoint Mr. Kwame Owusu, barring that there is an investigation which report will be made public to and the report will state to the contrary to the allegations that has been made, we believe that government is only taking a step forward and 2 steps back.
So fundamentally, you believe people like myself and you and others who pay taxes, knowing that you have a person with questionable integrity, as you allege, at the board, may feel hesitant in wanting to freely pay their taxes because they are not sure if the same individual will supervise the actual misuse of the taxes they pay. Is that your argument?
Yes, and you see, it's not you and I who are already paying taxes, but the argument has been made over and over that Ghana, we need to widen the tax net. We need to rope in people who are not paying taxes, or you understand, so that at least those of us who are paying will not be burdened with continual increasing taxes. So we can rake in a lot more revenue. So therefore, the tax amnesty was to bring people who could pay taxes, who are supposed to pay taxes, but are not paying. So that after the tax amnesty, these people will voluntarily pay the tax. Now, the reason why anybody would not want to pay tax is that the person does not have confidence in the tax administration, in the fact that the taxes will be used for the purpose for improving the well-being of a citizen. Now, if we have someone who had been alleged, is alleged to have misappropriated state resources, is alleged, and this individual has not been investigated or has been investigated, but the public is not aware that, indeed, the findings of the investigation is to the contrary. What you have left in the minds of people is that, well, you have put in place people with doubtful integrity, and there is no way these people are going to make policies that will promote the usage of tax revenue properly.
But you make the point. Nothing was proven against him.
Yes, but the fact that nothing was proven makes the allegation stand. You have to disabuse people's mind. You have to convince people that the allegations were not true. You understand? Because, you see, interestingly, part of the allegations that were made, the gentleman, Mr. Kwame Owusu himself, admitted that, yes, I have renovated the house, I've made it 4-bedroom, etc. and etc. Therefore, the issue about the abuse of office, does it stand or not? The issue of conflict of interest, does it stand or not? If it doesn't stand, please publish the report. You see, it is always in the interest of public officials or our government to let people know. Transparency is the name of the game today. So they should just publish the report. And the more that we hold the publication of the report, the more people feel that our government cannot be trusted. And the more it makes the fight against corruption a lot more difficult. Because, you see, people like, many Ghanaians believe that, our president cannot be corrupted, will not tolerate corruption, will not countenance corruption. Now, 2 years down the road, if reports that are coming out are reports that smacks of, or that are contrary to the belief that people had in him, then what are we saying? What are we telling Ghanaians? So it is in the interest of all of us that if there are reports to the contrary, if the reports be published, if not, the individual, the gentleman involved, to leave. We just have to. The president would have to just say that, well, I'm sorry, I am revoking your appointment, because until such time that the investigations are concluded and you are exonerated. Other than that, I really don't see the difficulty in getting this sorted out.
From all indications, this appointment was done in June. The man had taken office because he was giving days to reply. If your demands are clear, publish the report or revoke his appointment. If you don't get any of these, then what?
Well, then the public ought to know so you see, we are dealing with rhetorics and we are calling for reality. That we need, you see, the promise of holding ourselves in, the promise that, look, we are not corrupt, we cannot be corrupt, must be put to test. And if the government thinks that, well, what we are saying doesn't matter, 2020 Ghanaians will decide. It is not for JII or for any individual to do anything, but to wait for Ghanaians to decide. Because, you see, as at the time when Ghanaians were promised, it was based on statements, promises. Now Ghanaians have the opportunity of experiencing the reality. So it is for Ghanaians to decide if the government will do nothing about it.
Mr. Bedi, I'm grateful that you joined us, and we reached out to government to try and get a sense of whether, firstly, was the investigation. There's a few questions. The investigation that was ordered, was it actually done? If it was done, was it completed? If it was completed, where's the report? These are three questions that we were hoping to put to government, but government says, it's not something that they would like to speak to as of now. Once we that position changes, we'll bring that to you when we have it. And just as I indicated earlier, the GII isn't the only civil society group putting pressure on government to revoke the appointment or publish the report. The CDD is doing same. The Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement at the CDD, Dr. Kojo Asante, says the president must rescind his decision.
There's a sense of impunity. This is somebody who, from the set of facts that were put across, there's no way he should have been doing what he was doing, and didn't even seem to appreciate that his conduct was unbecoming as a public servant. How do you then reward the person with a chairmanship of the Ghana Revenue Authority? Government is asking us to pay taxes, encouraging us. We are not doing well in terms of our tax to GDP ratio. What message do you send to the people that you are encouraging, to pay their taxes so you can develop this country, when you put that person into that kind of role? It means that, there's a real issue, there's a real problem. So for me, I think government is a decision really, it does not help even the effort to expand the tax net in terms of all the Ministry of Finance is trying to do. It doesn't help. It conveys a very, wrong impression that this is the kind of conduct, that we accept. We should step back, draw the clear lines that public service is about a certain conduct. So I really think that this is a decision that should be rescinded.
And I want to take you to the High Court now, because lawyers for alleged murder of the MPP Upper East Regional Chairman Adams Bahama say they will challenge the decision of the Accra High Court to rescind the bail granted Gregory Afoko by another High Court. Now, they have described as shocking the decision of the court presided over by Justice Marley Wood. Now, Mr. Afoko, remember, he's the brother of former MPP National Chairman Paul Afoko, has been in the custody of the police since March 2015 and has still not been released despite being granted bail in March this year. Now, state prosecutors today argued Gregory Afoko will not show up to stand trial if the court does not overturn the bail granted earlier. Now, my colleague Joseph Akable was in court and joins me in the studio with details. What was the basis of the request by the state prosecution that the bill should be rescinded?
They make the point that circumstances have changed, in that the new trial that was to start at the High Court is about to commence, and that they have the opinion that it will be difficult to find Mr. Afoko and have him appear in court if he is granted bail. And so they are asking the court to rescind the bail that was granted by a different High Court.
Okay, but this is after 3 months of holding him against explicit orders of another High Court.
In fact, the lawyers for Mr. Afoko, who was presented today by Sowa Chawe, made this point in open court. They make the point to the court that the bail that they are seeking to rescind, Mr. Afoko has not actually enjoyed any of it, and that as we speak, there are a number of pending cases. The first being the Court of Appeal, where there's a pending case against the bail that was granted. There is also a contempt case against the IGP and the CID boss relating to the refusal to release Mr. Afoko. So they made the point that the court shouldn't pronounce on this particular application, but the judge proceeded and rescinded the bail that had been granted by another High Court judge.
We can now speak to Mr. Nana Yaose. He is a member of Mr. Afoko's legal team and speaks for the family as well. Hello, Nana Yaose. Can you hear me, sir? I think we lost him on the line. We'll try and get him back. But Martin Kpebu's on the line. We'll speak to him also. In court today, you got a word from him on the back of this. They're obviously disappointed with the decision of the court.
He was actually shocked.
Oh, I'm very surprised that a High Court of coordinate jurisdiction will rescind the bail granted to Greg Afoko when same has been appealed against. There's a pending appeal in respect of the bail granted to Greg Afoko. So I'm wondering the jurisdiction with which she rescinded the decision. I am surprised, very, very surprised. But will deal with it appropriately. The family only knows of the fact that he's been granted bail and that he was supposed to be released by the police, and the police were refusing to release him.
Well, Mr. Say is on the line with me now. Mr. Say, thank you for your time here on Top Story. Obviously shocked by the decision of the court. Has a decision now been taken to appeal that?
We are in the process of doing that.
So an appeal will definitely go?
By all means.
Okay, and you have a substantive disagreement because you believe another court at the same level shouldn't have done this, correct?
That is so. You see, Evans, let me put out this information. When Greg was granted bail, the AGs appealed against the decision. That appeal is still pending. That appeal is yet to be heard. Then another high court rescinds the bail that has been appealed against at the Court of Appeal. It is very surprising.
You yourself are a lawyer. Isn't there precedent to this?
Come again.
Yourself as a lawyer, isn't there precedent to this?
That is why I am telling you I am very surprised. This is the first time I am hearing or seeing something like that.
Now, how is Mr. Foko himself doing?
Oh, he appears to be okay. He was taken to court today from the hospital.
From the hospital?
Yes.
As he returned to the hospital, is back in custody of the cells?
He's now been taken back to the BNI cells.
So, is that to say that he's all this time being held at the BNI cells?
He's always been held there.
Since 2015?
No. Since 2015, he was held at Nsawam. When the AGs discontinued with the matter, when they filed the Nolly Prosecco, if you remember, that was when they took him away from Nsawam to the BNI cells at around 37.
Hold the line for me briefly. I want to see if we can explore this a bit more. I've just been joined also on the telephone line by a private legal practitioner, Mr. Martin Kwebu, on the line. Mr. Kwebu, thank you for your time here on Top Story as well.
You're welcome, Evan.
You heard the lawyer in the case. He's surprised at the decision of the High Court. Are you too?
Oh, I'm exceedingly surprised. Very, very surprised. This is the kind of thing the Supreme Court duplicated in the case I took to the Supreme Court, the non-bailable offences case. Look, the Supreme Court was very anxious to make it clear that the liberty of an accused is not to be toyed with. Evans, we have a situation in which an accused person has met all the conditions of bail that have been granted to him by a high court. Then all of a sudden turn around on very weak grounds that he was abscond. Evans, in the decision to grant him bail, all these risks were evaluated, the flight risk and everything. So it's very surprising. Oh, it's bizarre. No, it doesn't bode well for our judicial system if this kind of things continue. So I'm expecting that they will take the necessary steps. That's a great.
But before we come to the necessary steps, my attention has just been drawn to something that happened in court. In fact, the procedure adopted by the state in making the application they did, which was granted. My colleague Akable is here with me. Akable, did they file actual processes to back this application?
No. So what was supposed to happen today was actually the arraignment where they read the charges and they take the plea. But once
then when the case is supposed to start proper.
Yes.
Okay.
So because the jurors were not ready, the judge asked that they have to take a date. Then it was at that point that the state prosecutor now rises up to say that she wants to make an oral application for bail. And the point that lawyers for Mr. Foko raised was that at least they should have come on notice and notified them so they would have responded appropriately.
So what you're saying is simple, is that in short is that the state prosecutor stood up and said, "Yeah, we are opposed to the bill, and we are asking the court to, rescind the other court decision, and hold them further."
And that's what's happening.
Without actually presenting the documents to back it.
Yes, that's what's happening.
Matikbebu, is this something that you used to in court as well?
No, Evans, what I should say at this point is that because I wasn't in court, I'll be very slow to comment, as to what actually happened in court. That's the thing, because Akable is not a lawyer.
But you can tell me what the actual procedure is in such matters. If a state was making an application such as they just did, knowing very well that another high court had already denied, has already granted bail to Mr. Afoko 3 months ago, and they wanted to challenge it, what are the proper processes to follow?
Oh, good. So for that, it's already clear that when the bail was granted, the state appealed against it. So the state has to pursue its appeal. There's an appeal pending on this matter. So when you have an appeal pending, you haven't withdrawn it, you cannot go and make this fresh application. It's abuse of process of the court. It's a gross abuse, you say. So it means that the state was clearly out of order. A high court grants bail, you challenge it, then the court refused, then you appeal. When it was appealed, it even went to court of appeal. A court of appeal, when they applied for stay of execution, meaning that the Afoko Greg should not be released, even if he meets the conditions. And the court of appeal threw out to the Attorney General. So with the law having been thrown in their faces, what they had to do was to pursue the substantive appeal. So if you go to court and the law is thrown in your face, pursue your substantive appeal. How do you surreptitiously go mount an oral application for bail? This one is really strange.
You talk about abuse of the processes, and I'm curious because I'm a layperson. But the judge who sat on this case today and overruled the decision of his colleague at that same level, I mean, didn't he or she right? Didn't she appreciate what you're saying?
Evan, that's why I said for that 1,000 in court, we don't want to specifically comment on that because we're in there. But the undisputed facts. So let's use the undisputed facts. Those are the ones that you will be on safe grounds to comment on. It's public knowledge that when the Attorney General lost in the High Court, they appealed. Okay, and when they filed the appeal, they mounted an application for stay of execution. That was also flatly rejected by the Court of Appeal. Ever, that's the instructive part. The Court of Appeal has looked at it and threw it out. So it means that, and look, Evans, why so much a big deal about this bill? Look, Evans, day in, day out, good High Court judges grant bail. Evans, security men, watchmen, unemployed persons on murder charges. They just make sure that the conditions are such that the person hasn't absconded. So Evans, if Greg Afoko, okay, who has brothers like the former chairman of the NPC, okay, Paul Afoko, if Greg's family cannot grant, they cannot meet the bail conditions, then I wonder. And in this case, they've already met the conditions.
Yeah, I mean, let me quickly bring in Ms. Osei. Ms. Osei, so you say you're going to appeal this, but as we've just heard there, and this was just based on an oral application made by the state, as you've heard, and also there's an appeal that the state itself is pursuing at the appeals court. That hasn't been determined, and the High Court has made its ruling. Your case is that this is something that you're going to take up yourself at the appeals court, correct?
That is true.
I'm great. Yeah.
Why the state has abandoned the appeal it filed at the Court of Appeal and then resorted to what it did this morning is what is baffling us. Why not pursue the appeal? You've appealed against the decision that granted bail to Greg Afoko. Pursue the appeal. You abandon that, or you leave that, and then you come to court, you make an oral application, and the court listens to you, and then also rescinds the decision of a court of coordinate jurisdiction decision. is very strange.
I'm grateful that you joined us. That's the night I was saying. I just been told that the judge who sat on this particular case was just last year appointed to the appeals court, and so she's an appeals court judge, also sitting as a high court judge as well, and to the decision that was taken today. It's Top Story. News Night starts right now.